7 Eastern.
Keeping them honest tonight, chilling new questions about cell phones and cancer, including this. If they're so safe, why do manufacturers recommend holding them more than a half inch away from your head while you talk? Who does that? I certainly have never done that. If they're so safe, why does one top neurologist who deals with brain tumors daily have this to say?
I don't think any mother, if they knew that there was a 2.5-fold increase in their kid developing brain cancer when they were 40 or 50, would allow their kids to use cell phones.
The thing is, they haven't even tested for kids with cell phones. Notice he said if mothers knew. The fact is, there are plenty of studies out there that show cell phone use is safe. But getting back to what if the research is incomplete because many cancers take a long time to develop and cell phones haven't been around that long? Recently, the National Institutes of Health released a study showing that using a cell phone changes the chemistry inside your brain. What if it does more than just that? Now, we warn you now, there are no answers yet, but as 360MD Sanjay Gupta found out, there are serious people asking life and death questions. Sanjay, this piece is really fascinating and terrifying, I gotta say. These cell phones haven't been around long enough, it seems like, to really have an accurate sense of whether or not they're safe.
That's the issue, is that, there haven't been studies to conclusively show that they're dangerous, but there's not studies out there to show that they're conclusively safe either. The problem is the ubiquity of these, Anderson, and how much we're using them. Even some of the earlier studies, regular cell phone use would be defined as, a couple of hours per week for 6 months. Who uses their cell phones like that? I mean, most people have it planted to their head many hours of the day and for many years to come. So
the whole idea that, in the fine print of the owner manual and stuff, it says you're supposed to hold it, 5/8 of an inch away from your head or something. No, who does that? I mean, I keep mine pressed up. My ear gets warm. I have it pressed against my head so much.
Yeah, I don't think most people read the little fine print there. But I think what's even more impressive about that is that as much as, you hear from the FCC saying, look, no precautionary measures are necessary whatsoever, the manufacturers themselves, Anderson, are saying, look, 5/8 of an inch away from your ear. I mean, that's impractical, but all away from your body in general. So not even in your front pocket, next to your bone marrow, next to your reproductive organs.
Wait, you're not even supposed to have it in your pocket?
Well, they say, it's supposed to keep it 5/8 of an inch away from your body. So it's if you had it in your pocket, it's probably right up against your skin. So it's, you're supposed to put it in these holsters, again, which very few people use, or in a separate bag and carry it with you.
Yeah, I look like enough of a geek as it is. I'm not sure I need a holster, but I gotta say, after seeing this report, I'm gonna get one of those earpieces and try to use that.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you if you actually use one. I use mine all the time. When we travel overseas. I don't know if you've seen me with this in my ear. I've actually bring you one by your office too. We're sending one to your office, so you're going to have one as well. Look, it's one of these things, Anderson, and I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist or even histrionic about this, but it is a pretty easy thing to do, to use the earpiece. And again, manufacturer from the cell phones themselves recommend keeping it away from your ear. A wired earpiece is a good way to do that. So I've been using it for years now. Who knows what 20 years from now we're actually going to know about this?
Right.
But if the results come back that it was a problem, this is pretty protective.
Well, there's also, at least in my thinking, in the past when I thought about this, and in fact I was just talking about it in the office today when we were talking about your piece, is that I sort of assume well, look, everyone uses cell phones. They must be tested and safe and stuff, but clearly, they just haven't been around long enough, and just because everybody is using them, it doesn't mean that everybody, that there's not going to be some terrible news about these things down the road.
We find out things years down the road. Leaded gasoline, asbestos, even cigarettes. It takes time for some of that data to come back. And you saw how decidedly low tech, the safety testing is. I was surprised. I thought it would be much more sophisticated. It's not. And Anderson, let me even tell you, I got my cell phone right here. That number that you saw in the piece, 1.6, is sort of the absorption rate.
Right.
If you're on your phone and you're having a bad signal and you're having a hard time hearing somebody, that means your phone is setting off even more radiation at that time, trying to get you a better signal. So that number is not constant. If you have a bad signal, if you're overseas and having a difficult time hearing somebody, you're actually getting more radiation at that time. So these numbers really pop up and down.
And what is it about the microwave radiation that could potentially cause problems?
That's a good question. So ionizing radiation is one end of the spectrum. That's X-rays. Everyone agrees in large amount that can be a problem. Non-ionizing is more like a low-powered microwave oven. oven. You know what a microwave oven can do at high powers? It can cook food. The question is, at low powers for long duration, could this be acting like a little microwave oven next to your head and causing tissue to heat up and possibly causing damage that way? We know for the first time this year from a study at the NIH that cell phones have an impact on the brain. It changes the way the brain metabolizes around the area of the cell phone. So there is an impact. The larger question is, what is that heating and that increased metabolism going to do in the long run? Could it lead to cancer? That's what a lot of people are trying to figure out.
I've actually gotten a rash at one point in my ear from my cell phone, from like the heat of it. I'm completely going to switch now based on what you're saying and your report. You also told me during the break that this Dr. Black treated the lawyer Johnnie Cochran. And what did he tell you about why he thought Johnnie Cochran got a brain tumor?
Well, I've been investigating this for some time, and it was a conversation with Dr. Black a few years ago. I asked Dr. Black about Johnnie Cochran. I said, do you have any idea why he got a brain tumor? And he replied almost without hesitation and said it was his cell phone usage. And I even said, Dr. Black, come on. I mean, there's been a lot of studies that show that can't be true. There's no link. And he said, I'm convinced of it. I'm saying the science simply has not caught up. People who use their cell phones a lot, you tend to see it. And at that time, wealthier people, because they're the ones that had cell phones, people who had jobs that required them to be on the cell phones a lot, he's starting to see an uptick in brain tumors in that specific population of people. And like you, Anderson, it's frightening to sort of think about, but that's what he's starting to see as a very busy brain tumor surgeon.
From now, there's no doubt I'm going to change my behavior on this one. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, appreciate it. Thank you, Sanjay.
Thanks, Anderson.
We have an announcement finally on whether cell phones cause cancer. It's something that could affect all of us and our children. Scientists from the World Health Organization have been reviewing studies for the last week or so. I want to bring in our senior medical correspondent, Elizabeth Cohen, who joins us live with the findings. Essentially, what did they find?
The World Health Organization says that the radiation from mobile devices like cell phones is a possible carcinogen to humans. This is a very big deal because you and I have done segments about this before. Sure. It has gone back and forth. And this is really the first time that a large group, and it doesn't get any more sort of prestigious in many ways than the WHO, to say that it's a possible carcinogen. It puts it in the company of several other kinds of things. And so I want to tell you what it is, and I think that might give people an idea of what we're talking about. It puts it in the company of things like lead is also a possible carcinogen, according to the WHO, as well as engine exhaust and chloroform. So that sort of gives you an idea of the kind of risk that we're talking about here.
I can't help but ask, I mean, should we be alarmed? Should we be freaking out over this information?
You know what? I really hope that people who are listening to me are not freaked out. For two reasons. One, they won't do the right thing, and we'll talk about what the right thing is in a minute. And two, they'll panic, and that's kind of silly because all these years we've been on cell phones and holding them to our heads, which is what we're talking about as being bad. That's done. You can't do anything about that. And if you're on the phone right now, you don't need to drop it. You know, it's not that kind of a carcinogen. It's a kind of a carcinogen, or allegedly, possibly, that would build up over time. One phone call, doctors tell me, is not going to give you cancer.
So what should we be doing? With this new information, what on earth should we be doing now?
We are so lucky that there is something that we can do, because a lot of medical problems we can't, but we're lucky that there is something, and I am holding it in my hands right now. You use a device to keep that phone away from your head. Okay, I'm going to make it very simple. This is what experts that I talk to don't want you to do. This radiation is very close to your head. The minute that you put, you can hold the phone at a distance. At this distance, that radiation is dissipating. It's not going to affect you very much, if at all. Hold it away from your head, which means using a wired piece like this or a Bluetooth, or put it on speakerphone. Keep it away from your head. That's the bottom line, and it's really easy to do. I mean, I can count on one hand the number of times in the past year that I have spoken on the phone like this. I just don't do it.
I'm going to change my habits. Do you have any idea, or did WHO say anything about whether or not it can be on your body, on your person, in a pocket, in a holster, anything like that? Did they weigh in at all?
WHO really focused on gliomas, which are brain tumors, because that's what a lot of the studies have been on. But Suzanne, I've certainly spoken to experts who say that they themselves do not carry it on their bodies, that they figure why take that risk if there is a risk, and so they will carry their phones in their purses or in a briefcase. You know, they'll try to keep it a bit of a distance away from their bodies, but the jury is still out on that.
And what do you think cell phone companies are going to do? How do they respond to this? Is there a way that they can manufacture a safer phone?
Right. We're seeking a response from the CTIA, which is the industry group. And I think what could happen is that people like the FCC, or other groups like that in other countries might say, this is important what the WHO is saying. And so maybe we ought to tell cell phone companies to make phones with lower radiation. That's a possibility. They may say, tell cell phone companies, go back to the drawing board, come up with a phone that emits less radiation.
So bottom line, for those who are watching and who've wondered about whether or not this causes cancer,
right,
it's all about keeping it away from your head.
Right. The WHO says possibly. So experts I've talked to say, why in the world would you take the risk? Keep it away from your head by using some kind of an earpiece.
All right, Elizabeth, thank you so much.
Thanks.
It's something a lot of people have been asking, and clearly we have something that is rather conclusive from a very prestigious organization.
That's
it is
right.
a big deal.
It is. It is.
All right. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thanks.